Why do over two-thirds of estate and letting agents manage with a fear of failure as opposed to a goal of success? Talk to me.
That's interesting, Chris. But here's the question: is it just estate agents and letting agents that are afraid of failure,
It's probably everyone.
or is it everybody? Exactly that. Exactly that.
It's that like their fear of failure is holding them back. All their decisions, they're procrastinating. They can see their this is specifically about letting an estate agency. They can see their market share slipping year by year. They're sitting on the fence. Yeah, they're reacting to competitors' campaigns. That they're not driving it, not being proactive. Why do people have this fear of failure?
So there are people that say it's a tough business to be in, right? And if you describe it as that, guess what it's going to be,
It's gonna be tough.
right? And if you say, "Oh, every day is getting harder," what's every day going to be doing?
It's gonna get harder.
Because who are you listening to more than anybody?
That voice in your head.
Absolutely. But what if you actually go, "Do you know what? Everyone else is saying this is getting harder. That means there's a great opportunity because it's not getting harder for me." Just like that simple belief. Now, it's very easy to say, it's much harder to do.
Okay.
You know, if you've got an ingrained belief pattern in your head, it's much harder to change it. But if we kind of look at the way we've evolved as human beings, and I mean, I could talk about this for an entire day, so I'm going to try and keep it short. But there's this theory that basically says we've got three brains. Okay, we've got a reptilian brain, then we've got a kind of monkey or chimp brain, and finally we've got the human brain. Everything we experience is filtered in that order. And our reptilian brain, which is actually called the reptilian complex, that's what it's called, this is a technical term for it,
Yes.
right? It basically asks three questions. The first of those is, will this do me harm? Will this hurt me? And if you think about it, if everything you experience, one of the questions you're asking is, will this hurt me? Is it very easy to go into fear?
Of course it is.
Right? And so from that point of view, just taking that one question alone, we can very easily catastrophize anything. And my experience of most people,
Because
right?
this is why people don't like public speaking, and it's the amygdala, I think, if memory serves. I've talked about this in other videos. People have this fear, don't they?
Yeah, well, so more people are afraid of public speaking than they are of death. Go figure, right? Because to the best of my knowledge,
It's the same with going on video.
well, almost nobody dies on stage, right? You know, it's not a normal practice. So, yeah, there is this huge fear of the unknown. There's this huge fear of rejection. There's this huge fear of what will people think of me if I fail? And it's one of the things that's interesting if you compare different cultures, because in the US, almost everyone that's really successful in business has been bankrupt at least once or twice. Here, there's a huge stigma with going bankrupt. In the US, it's just seen as part of the journey. You know, so they kind of embrace that failure as a learning experience much more than we do.
Do you think it's because people allow them to judge them?
I think there's a lot of that, and I think in our culture, like the British culture, you know, we're very quick to judge. You know,
Because the Americans have got the same lizard brain as us.
Yeah.
Because they're only.
but the environment they operate in, the culture around them, I think is a little bit different, right? And I mean, actually, this is going to sound like a bit of a weird tangent, but I think it's a relevant one.
Go for it.
I mentioned in one of the other videos that I grew up in Southampton. Okay, one of Southampton's like more famous musical exports is Craig David. Craig David, when he first came out, everyone's like, "This guy's amazing." And then a couple of celebrity comedians decided to do parodies and things, and he ended up leaving the country and living in the US because of the amount of stick he was getting from every direction. And I think it's very much in the British culture to say, "We'll build you up, but you can't be too big."
Is that tall poppy syndrome?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, exactly. You know, we'll build you up, and once your head's too high, we're just going to lop it off, right? And I think that's I think it's what happened to him. And then several years later, he was able to come back and make a successful career again. But I think it's what we all fear happening to us. So we're afraid of failure and we're afraid of success. Because if we're too successful, no one's going to like us anymore, and they're all going to think like we've become arrogant. Most people don't. Most of the successful people that I've met are as down to earth as they've always been, right? They're no different, regardless of what industry they're in, how famous. Yeah, they're just regular people. But we have this fear of we're going to change. And then I think on the failure side, it's the same thing. We're afraid of the judgment from other people.
Okay.
And if we can let go of that and just focus on kind of our own judgment of ourselves, we can push through a lot of that.
So you said there's three things: fear of failure, fear of success. What's the third?
I can't remember what I said now. I've got monkey brain. It jumps all over the place. But you know, just take those two. If you're afraid of success and you're afraid to fail, you're going to be afraid to start.
Have we moved over to the monkey brain yet?
No, I mean, if we go to the monkey brain's all about emotions and feelings. Okay, so we go from the three questions. You know, the prime one we focused on here is the will it do me any harm?
Will it kill me?
Exactly, yeah. I mean, the other two are can I eat it and can I procreate?
Those are the three, yes.
Right. So
yeah,
those are the three questions.
There you go. Will it kill me? Can I shag it? And can I eat it?
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm glad you put it that way because the way I normally describe it, but I wasn't sure how much of a family show this is supposed to be.
Oh, they'll be fine. Don't worry. So you now move over to the monkey brain, which is more emotional.
Is all about feelings and emotions. So how do I feel about something? And if I don't like the way I feel about it, I can't apply logic to it. And it's interesting, the way so many people try and communicate, go back to things like marketing, the way so many people try and communicate is they start with logic, which is back to front.
Well, it's the same with their marketing. Everyone does marketing that way.
That's my point. Yeah, and it's back to front, right? Start with this isn't going to do you any harm, right?
Yes.
Then go into the how is this going to make you feel? Now rationalise it and give logical reasons as to why it works. And do it to yourself as well. So, you know, I'm a big believer in having like a primary question. So if you've got a question that you can ask yourself whenever you get stuck, that can unlock you. Now, that might be, you know, if we go back to talking about things like ideal customers, it might be we named our ideal customer. It's like, you know, what would Chris do or what would Chris want? That might be our question. Our question might be something like, okay, what would love do? You know, if I'm trying to come from a place of love or fear, I want to avoid fear. So what would love do in this situation? You know, it might be, I've met people whose primary questions are things like, how do I give myself a pay raise in this situation? That might be your question. It would never be my question because for me, it's not all about the money, it's about the impact, right? But it's, you know, if you've got a question that you can refer back to that's in alignment with the kind of culture you're trying to build in your organization, the values you have for yourself, the vision you have for your future, and you just go, okay, well, I'm a bit scared, I'm a bit stuck. Ask this question.
It's interesting. Tom Panos says that he would say, what advice would I give to a friend if the friend came?
There you go, same thing. Same thing. I actually had a coach I worked with about 5 years ago.
Okay.
And she was absolutely brilliant. She's a good friend of mine now. But she kind of put herself out of business in terms of dealing with me when she asked me one question, which was, she said, look, Neil, you do coaching, which I mean, I do a lot of now, but even at that point, I was doing coaching stuff. She's like, Neil, you do coaching. If you were talking to your number one client who was in this situation, what advice would you give them? And then her next point was, you are your own number one client. And as soon as she said that, I was like, that's awesome. It's mind blowing. But every time I deal with you from now on, I'm going to ask myself that question. So she didn't become completely superfluous, but she reduced her value to me. And it was time to find other people to give me different insights, you know. But that was such a shift for me. It was incredibly powerful.
So really, it comes down to your mindset. And if you can be positive and think to yourself, right, this is not going to kill me and I'm not going to shag it, technical term.
Yeah.
And it's going to make me feel good. And basically what you're saying is if you're presented with a situation, you ask that magic question of yourself.
Yeah. And
what would Chuck Norris do?
Well, and if you don't have any other question, go for this one, okay? Does it really matter? Like if you're afraid of something, does it really matter? And what I mean by that is if I look back in 12 months or 24 months or 10 years, will I even remember this?
Probably not. Cheers, mate.
Thank you.